Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our channel. My name is Anya, and on this channel, we discuss manhwa and manga. You've arrived to the correct location if you like reading tales that have nifty illustrations and fascinating people as the main characters. At the beginning of this story, our main character Shuaib comes to his senses, but he is having trouble even breathing and it is so bright that he cannot even open his eyes. We get to know a little bit about him. He was a 23-year-old forever single boy from Jeddah in the Khan-named town. He started his first job in the sales department of a web advertising company. When he tries to remember what happened to him recently, he remembers that he opened his eyes and was surprised to see that he was not in any hospital but in a very strange place, and his body was wrapped in some weird black strings. But what was more shocking was that his hands and legs were completely fine. In fact, none of his bones were broken, and on top of this he was naked. He ripped the black strings apart and sneaked into a tube from a crack. It was looking puddled. Broken all his bones, he was wondering if he would be fired from his job due. He was really confused and was looking desperately for some help, but he was also worried that if he went to the public naked like that, then they wouldn't help him. So he thinks of getting dressed up before finding someone, but while he is thinking of all this, a wild wolf leaps at him from behind and bites his hand. Shu was just shocked that a wolf was there in Japan. He was earlier thinking that it was some kind of modern technology, but after watching all that now, Wolf bites off a piece of his hand. Shu starts screaming because he did not want to die so easily. The wild wolf attacks him again, but suddenly a sword generates from his hand which kills the wild wolf. After that he becomes unconscious. When he wakes up he was thinking that he had returned to our world, but when he finally wakes up he sees the wolf actually lying dead in front of him. He starts wondering how he became so strong at once. His hands were still shiver. Actually save him from starving, and then something even stranger occurs. A small squirrel is trying to communicate with him, and he freaks out after witnessing something like that. The squirrel slaps him on the face, accusing him of making noise that might attract other beasts, and then it tells Shu that the hunters squeak out metro beasts sporangium all the time, and it lives on the leftovers squeaked by them. Therefore, it asks Shu to start squee. Shu cuts the belly and puts his hand on it. The squirrel tells him to look for something ballast deep inside it, but then they hear some roar from the distance. Some more beasts were approaching at them. The squirrel shouts at you to follow her at once. They goes back to the place where Shu initially started. It was a good hideout. There was only a small crack for egress. They goes back to the place where Shu initially started. It was a good hideout. There was only a small crack for egress. There was beasts to come in. The squirrel assumes that the crack opened because of the fluctuations in the metro the previous day. Shu tells him that he was lying down there a while ago wrapped in something. He asks it what the place was. It tells him that it will tell him everything later. For now it was hurrying for the sporangium. It instructs him to eat it raw at once. However, Shu was not so sure about it as it was a body organ. After all, the squirrel shouts at him again that it will. He asks the squirrel what just happened to him, and the squirrel tells him that he just leveled up and that his body's kimchi has expanded. Despite being a citizen of Idokiri, he was squeaking dumber than even it. Shu was very confused here, and he simply tells the squirrel that he is just a regular employee and his name is Shuaib. Then, after eating some sporangium, the squirrel also levels up. Magical beast, the most famous carbuncle in the world. She just had a habit of using squeak a lot in her sentences. She was now full, so she offers the rest sporangium to Shu again. Shu asks her why she was eating this thing instead of grass like the other squirrels. The squirrel was surprised to see him leveling up twice continuously, but he was still feeling very weak. He had no clue where he was, so he asks the squirrel about the place in the year. The squirrel then tells Tomiko explains to him that currently they are on the Otsuka Metro, which was 50 levels deep in the underground, but she did not have much of a clue what was the year. She assumes it to be 102 according to the Tokyo calendar. She tells Shu that the metro was flooded 103 years ago and the previous kingdom sneaked into ruins, and now they calls it the new Tokyo, and it turned into the kingdom of idle curious people. Now Shu realizes what was going on. There were frequent collusions. Lines were out of order that day when he fell from the balcony after getting admitted to the hospital. Even his parents could hardly visit him due to the new Otsuka station going out of order. There was such a huge queue at the station waiting to get on a train that one cannot even enter the platform. They were calling it the Metro Flood on the TV. He remembers how crowded it was there in the hospital. That day he got informed to evacuate the area before he could realize what had happened. He remembers. He realizes that if what Tomiko was saying is true, then the calamity must have occurred along with the metro flooding event in Japan, or perhaps the entire world must have been destroyed by that, and then the new Tokyo must have formed. It was the only thing he could remember. the power supply got cut and it was all pitch black everywhere. The building was trembling as if it was going to collapse at any time, and then Shu felt like he was falling down along with his bed. That was all he could remember. He was supposed to be gone from the world if he slept for 100 years. But instead he was healthy as he was before the accident happened. It was like impossible for a normal human to live that long, so they were both wondering how he survived for 100 years. Then the show mentions again about the creepy black thing he was wrapped up in. When he woke up, Tomiko tells him that it's mole, perhaps it was Kanu. She says Shu was still confused. It was hard for him. Randomly starts tickling Tomiko's belly. At first Tomiko freaks out, but later on she feels blissful and then freaks out again when he stops and tells him to do it again. Then while tickling her again, he asks her if the mold was some fungal filament. Tomiko answers him that all humans have that fungal filament inside them, that's why he could make a use out of Kino. It also sounds so weird to Shu. Tomiko then asks him if he used Kinu to kill ability he just wished to live at that time. He tries it again by focusing on his hand, and again a sword was literally sprouting out of his hand. Then it comes out completely. Shu was shocked to see that he actually produced a sword. Tomiko tells him that it's his fungal ability, and it was also the fungal weapon the hunters use. It was an unpolished thirsty blade. It was very lightweight yet was sharp as if it was a real sword. Tomiko tells him that they eat the sporangum and eats it, and then they kills an even bigger one and repeats the process to get stronger. Shu was about to vomit, thinking that it was looking like their reproductive part. They were like the descendants of the animals that survived the metro pandemic that occurred 100 years ago. Then Shu asks Tomiko if Sugimo or Ikebukuro station was nearby, as she said earlier that th never lived on the surface. She had only learned about humans and their language from her mom. She tells him that her mom used to kill monsters as well as humans in the past. She was an intelligent being. Then Shu asks Tomiko what does it take to go back to the surface. With a smile Tomiko tells him that it's not possible. She tells him that as weak as he is now, he is nothing but a small tick in the vast metro, and if he remains careless like that, then he will be time. He tells him that he needs to climb a lot of stairs to get to the surface and that he will have to face a lot of metro beasts in his way. Then Shu asks her what was the possibility of another human being coming for them. Tomiko declared that impossible as well, as she had been living in the metro for a long time, but this was the first time she had ever seen a human. She was just excited to see a shiny human face. It was the worst for Shu and return to the surface. All he needed to do for that was eat more and more sporangium. She doubts that he will ever be able to do all of this by himself. He tells him that he has no preparation done and has no equipment. He was also lacking the knowledge for the current world. Tomiko gladly tells him that she will help him with that using the information she has received from her mother. She was ready to help him. She thanks her for her help but asks her to live on the surface as well. She had spent her whole life in the metro. She wanted to see the sun, the moon, and everything that was built by the humans. Bus from there, their journey together begins. They were in the underground basement level 50, which was going rampant with metro beasts. She only had his fungal sword as his weapon and a squirrel as his companion. It was a very strange adventure, but Shu was eager to find out what was at the surface. His only chance was to defecate on a metro beast. Surface Tomiko was also now a good friend of him. The way it was looking, they were expecting to spend at least 5 years on that level. However, they were pumped with motivation. That night Shu was dreaming that it was all a dream about being trapped in the tube. He was in the hospital and was getting treated, but then Tomiko wakes him up as it was morning. It was no dream but his reality now. It was a vast labyrinth spread out deeply right under Tokyo, yet it was so bright. Surface Tomiko was not as dark as it normally should have been. After that, Shu asked Tomiko if they had fallen asleep hungry the night before by mistake. He was starving now and was also very thirsty. He was looking for some water source. Then Tomiko mentioned about the oasis. After that, they got back to the subway through the crack. They seized the dead wolf's body from the previous day. It was turning into some sort of sea plot even though there was no light in there. Tomiko told Shu that was growing in the oasis. Shu summons his sword for protection. For now he could only use 2 of his fungal abilities to summon sword and to create that mole to heal. He wonders if there was more abilities than that he can use in the future. Then they finally reaches that spot. It was green and was full of fungus and plants. Shu was happy, but he was also alert as he was not sure what they could get there. Then finally he sees some water falling like a small fountain without a The sensation was different from drinking any normal water, and it was delicious. Temiko also quickly cleaned herself, and Shu asked her about the red jewel that was on her forehead. Temiko replied that her mom had also one, so she thought that that's how it was meant to be for squirrels. Shu tried to touch it, and Tomiko freaked out because it was very sensitive, but again on touching it she feels pleasured and wanted more. After drinking some water, it was time for them to find some. Tomiko tells Shu which plants are edible and which are poisonous, and the way that she is acting now makes it clear that she is a squirrel. Shu was skeptical that there was anything there that could satisfy his hunger, but he was definitely enjoying the beauty of that place. He notices that the properties of the grass were perfect to make a bed for him, and he also wrapped himself up in a giant leaf that was sufficient to hide his private parts. He asks Tomiko if she can sense him, and she to come here. Her mom told her that the carnivorous animals usually goes away from the heavy floral smell of the oasis. He tells her that they can live there if they want. Tomiko explains to him that if any wild beasts attack them there then they will have no place to run. She also knew that their safety was above all. They spent their time setting up a base at their hideouts by harvesting necessary goods to make a basic living. It was difficult to produce fire and to catch prey. Shouts at him for capturing a rodent squirrel's buddy. He scolds him badly, but as he was not yet capable of killing the large beasts, so he had no choice but to eat at this time. But Tomiko also knew that it would be difficult for him to level up with rat sporangium. It might take him thousands of rats before he could level up. Once she suggests him to hunt a ghost wolf or a blue goblin. They were relatively weaker than him. She wolf and was stronger than the green goblin but weaker than the red. Shu even considers that above his level. He suggests going after the green one. Temiko tells him that unfortunately the floor only had blue and red goblins. The red one was above their current capacity. They could avoid fungal weapons and even fungal balls too. Shu asks Tomiko what does fungal balls mean. She did not know much about it herself. She tells him that it may be a tool that can be thrown at the enemy. She tells him that it was no. Therefore they started moving forward with the intention of avoiding the red goblin while fighting the blue goblin and the ghost wolf to the death. Soon 3 days passed, yet they confronted none. Shu was sleeping, but then suddenly Tomiko woke him up as a beast was approaching at them. They both could smell it clearly from a distance. They were wondering whether it would be a blue goblin or a ghost wolf or both, but that was not possible because the goblins and the wolves had never worked together before. Beware. And then backstabbed the last one standing. He was planning to abstract the third party's advantage. He was so eager to go to the surface that he was losing his mind. That was exactly what was happening. The wolf and the blue goblin were fighting ferociously. The ghost wolf was dominating the fight. They thought that the ghost wolf would triumph. However, a red goblin enters the fight and beats the ghost wolf at once with the fungal needles. He was now in self-doubt about his own strength, but there was no time for that. He grabs his sword and rushes at the wolf, leaving the rest to Tomiko. Shu was carrying a katana and was charging straight at a big giant wolf while wearing a skirt. He was sure that nothing good could come from that, but still he wanted to at least try. After a fierce fist fight, he leaps at the wolf, and after a fierce fist much that Tomiko thought that he would die, but then again the black mold was forming around his body and was starting to heal him. He was pitying himself that he got to this condition even though his opponent was heavily wounded. However, for Tomiko things were different. Shu was also so heavily injured but now was healing easily. Shu wonders who the real monster was. After some time, Shu gets healed completely, and she yells at him to quickly eat the sporangum of the beasts. They was not dead yet. Shu tries to summon his sword, but he was not able to as he was not completely out of energy. The goblin leaps and strikes Shu hard on his belly. Even though it was on the verge of death, the punch was powerful enough to throw Shu away. Then Tomiko tries to stop it, and now the red goblin was going to kill her, but right at that moment Shu sees a red fungal filament forming on his finger. He knew what it was without wasting any time. He throws at Tomiko, gathers the sporangiums and feeds it to Shu. Shu wakes up and gulps it and also levels up at the same time. They were both extremely glad that they survived it. Shu is now on level 4. Shu killed the beast with a last blow from his sword, and then he fainted himself. They looked around and saw that the goblins and the wolf were dead, and that they were the only ones who had survived. Nonetheless, they were still unable to believe it. He had never anticipated that an ordinary carefree guy like him could fight in such a fashion. However, what was weird was the usage of fungus balls. If he ate it, it would make him sick. Then he recovers, and if he throws it, Then it explodes in flames. Shu was very happy that now he could access the fire. He could now burn his meat, which improved his chance of survival by a large margin. He now also had a long-range weapon, but it still was not enough to fight deadly beasts. Thus, after that day, it became a daily routine for Tomiko to carefully bait monsters for Shu to take down. Shu could move better than before, but still all he could do was. She decides to remain in their hideout as she would not be much of a use in the battlefield, though what Shu was worried about was that any monster could attack Tomiko while he is away. He believed that they both should stick together as much as possible. Tomiko tells him that there used to be a super strong metro beast in that area. They were lucky to escape it. He told Tomiko that he feels like his body got hotter, and she told him that if his back feels hot then he got a new canoe. He tried all kinds of stuff, but there was no clue of any new ability, and then after so many tries, a new thing formed out of his hand. It was a canoe. Used to him in offense but might aid defense. Then he tests it in a combat. It repels bite and claw attacks and could be used as a distraction. Then he realizes that it was the first time he got away unharmed. They were both pretty delighted. Shu was now on level 7. He had been fighting at that level for around half a year at that point, and he was now able to battle ghost wolves with ease. However, one day as he was battling with one ghost wolf, another ghost wolf attacked him from behind, and Shu did not have enough time to react to know what would happen next. So go ahead and press that subscribe button, and we'll go on an adventure together through the world of manga and manhwa. We appreciate your presence and are looking forward to having a good time with you.